reached for his wallet, something slipped out. A small worn-out photograph. It waved to the floor, landing facing up. Nnenna's heart stopped. She knew the face, the gentle smile, the kind eyes. Her mother. How did this stranger, this wealthy man, have a picture of her mother? A simple village woman who had never known wealth or power. The late night shift dragged on at the quiet buka. The hum of a flickering lantern barely broke the silence. Nnenna wiped down the wooden counter, exhausted but relieved that the night was almost over. Then, the rusty bell above the door creaked. She looked up, expecting a tired traveler or a local craving pepper soup. Instead, a tall, broad-shouldered man in a fine agbada strode in. His presence filled the small buka like a king walking into his palace. Even the gold on his outfit looked richer than anything Nnenna had ever seen. He moved with quiet confidence, scanning the room like a man who owned everything he touched. Nnenna watched as he settled into a corner seat, his eyes fixed on the dusty village road outside. She approached his table, trying not to stare too hard. "What will you eat, sir?" she asked. "Just palm wine," he said, his deep voice carrying authority. She nodded and quickly brought a calabash filled to the brim. He barely acknowledged her. Nnenna was used to rich men ignoring her, so she simply turned to leave. As he reached for his wallet, something slipped out. A small worn-out photograph. It waved to the floor, landing facing up. Nnenna's heart stopped. She knew the face, the gentle smile, the kind eyes. Her mother. How did this stranger, this wealthy man, have a picture of her mother? A simple village woman who had never known wealth or power. Before she could stop herself, she bent down and picked it up. "Where did you get this, sir?" Her voice came out like a whisper, but her hands trembled. The man's head snapped up. For the first time, his sharp eyes locked onto hers. He looked at her properly, as if seeing her for the first time. Nnenna turned the photograph towards him, gripping it tightly. "Why do you have a picture of my mother?" For a brief moment, something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe even regret. But then, just quickly, his face became unreadable. Without a word, he reached for the photograph. His fingers brushed against hers as he took it from her grip. "You must be mistaken," he said, tucking it back into his wallet, as if it meant nothing. Nnenna felt her stomach twist. She knew exactly what she had seen. Her mother had kept a near-identical photograph in a small wooden box at home. She had memorized every crease, every tiny scratch on the old picture. "This is not a mistake," she said firmly. "I am not mistaken." "Why do you have it?" The man exhaled sharply, adjusting the gold cuff on his sleeve. "I don't owe you an explanation." Then, before she could react, he stood up, placed a thick wad of money on the table, and turned towards the door. Panic surged through her. He was leaving. This might be her only chance to find out the truth. She rushed forward, nearly knocking over a tray in her haste. "Wait!" But he didn't stop. He was already stepping into a sleek black jeep parked by the roadside. His driver, a tall man in traditional siago and a red cap, held the door open. Nnenna's heart pounded. "Please, just tell me, how do you know her?" For a brief moment, the man paused. his hand resting on the car door. She hoped he might say something. Instead, he turned just enough to meet her gaze. His stare cooled and detached. Then, in a voice devoid of emotion, he said, "Forget this." And with that, he climbed into the jeep. The door slammed shut, and before she could take another step, the car roared to life and disappeared into the night. Nnenna stood frozen on the dusty road, her breath coming in uneven bursts. Who was this man? And why did he have a picture of my mother? She wasn't letting it go. She was going to find out the truth. That night, Nnenna sat at her small wooden table, a flickering oil lamp casting shadows on the wall. She had no appetite, no sleep in her eyes. The rich man's face haunted her. She didn't even know his name. No business card, no receipt with a name, nothing. Just his cold eyes, his dismissive tone, and that photograph. But Nnenna was not a girl to give up easily. She began asking questions. She went to the village square the next morning, speaking to elders, traders, anyone who might recognize him. Who is the tall man in Agbada, the one with a big jeep and sharp eyes? It didn't take long before someone whispered his name. Oh, Odogwu, a billionaire businessman, a man of power and wealth. The kind of man whose name carried weight in every town and city. But what was his connection to her mother? Her mother, a simple woman who had struggled to raise her alone, who had never spoken of any rich or powerful man. Nnenna clenched her fists. She needed to speak to Odogwu again, and this time, he wasn't going to walk away so easily. She was going to find him, and she was going to get answers too. The morning sun cast a long shadows across the village as Nnenna hurried down the dusty road. Her heart set on one thing, finding Odogwu. She had spent the night piecing together every clue she had. If Odogwu was truly a powerful man as people whispered, he wouldn't be hard to find. The problem wasn't locating him. The problem was getting him to talk. She had one advantage though. She knew he had been in her village for a reason. People like Odogwu didn't just stop at a small roadside bukas in the middle of the night without a purpose. Her first step was the only place where power truly gathered in the village, the chief palace. The palace was a grand old compound with high mud walls and a large wooden gate. Guards stood outside, their red caps bright under the sun. Nnenna took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I need to see the chief," she said, trying to sound confident. One of the guards frowned. "The chief doesn't see just anyone." "It's about Odogwu," she pressed. "He was here last night." The two guards exchanged glances. That got their attention. After a long pause, one of them nodded. "Wait here." Minutes stretched into what felt like hours before a young palace boy appeared. "The chief will see you," he said, leading her inside. The chief's palace was vast, decorated with woven mats and wooden carvings. The chief, an elderly man with wise eyes, sat on a carved stool, watching her closely. "What do you know about Odogwu?" he asked. Nnenna hesitated, then chose her words carefully. "I don't know him, but I think he knew my mother." The chief's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his gaze. He tapped his fingers on his knee before finally speaking. "Odogwu was here last night for a reason," he said slowly. He came to discuss business, but that man doesn't step foot in a place unless it matters to him personally. Nnenna's purse quickened. What business? The chief studied her, as if deciding how much to say. Then he signed. He wants to buy a land here, a large piece of land on the outskirts of the village. Nnenna frowned. Land? What did that have to do with her mother? She was about to ask more when the chief leaned forward. If you want to find him, you should go there. He will visit the land again before finalizing the deal. Her heart pounded. This was her chance. Thank you, she said quickly, rising to her feet. But before she could leave, the chief called after her. Be careful, Nnenna. She turned. Odogwu is not a man who likes questions, the chief warned. If you are not ready for answers, do not chase them. But Nnenna had already made up her mind. She was ready, and she was going to get the truth no matter what it cost. The sun hung high in the sky as Nnenna made her way to the outskirts of the village. The land Odogwu was interested in stretched wide, covered in tall grass and scattered palm trees. A single black jeep was parked near a large tree, its engine humming softly. Nnenna's heart pounded. This was it. She stepped forward, determined. Just as Odogwu emerged from the car, he wasn't alone. A group of men in suits stood around him, speaking in hushed tones. But the moment he saw her, his jaw tightened. She didn't wait for him to dismiss her again. You knew my mother, she said, her voice steady. I deserve to know the truth. Odogwu exhaled sharply, glancing at his men. With a slight nod, they stepped away, giving them privacy. For the first time, Nnenna saw something in his eyes. Hesitation, maybe even guilt. She was a good woman, he finally said. His voice was softer now. The best I ever knew. Nnenna's breath caught. Then why did you pretend not to know her? He looked away, because the truth is painful. A long silence stretched between them before he finally spoke again. I loved your mother, he admitted, many years ago. But I was a coward. My family disapproved, and I chose wealth and status over love. I left, and by the time I realized my mistake, she was gone. His voice dropped. I didn't know she had a child. Nnenna swallowed hard, emotions swelling inside her. So why you came back for what? To buy land and forget? Odogwu shook his head. No, I came back to make things right. I wanted to build something in her honor. A clinic maybe, or a school. Something that would last. Nnenna studied him. He was a man who had everything, yet he had lost the one thing that mattered most. Finally, she spoke. If you really want to honor her, don't do this in secret. Let her name be known. Odogwu met her gaze, and for the first time he nodded. You are right. As the wind rustled through the trees, Nnenna realized that she had found her answers. It didn't change the past, but it gave her something she never thought she would have: closure. Odogwu turned to his men and said, find me the best builders and the best teacher. We are doing this properly. And just like that, Nnenna's mother's legacy could live on. What do you know? Is there a truth you need to uncover? A story in your life left untold? Don't be afraid to speak the answers. You might find something even more valuable along the way. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell